everybody for joining us. My name is Vija Williams, and I'm the Director of Growth for the Ben Kinney Companies. We have 8 fabulous Keller Williams offices from Bellingham all the way up to Olympia in Western Washington, and we have expansion teams all throughout the United States, tech, coaching, all sorts of cool stuff. So check us out. We do Wednesday webinars every single Wednesday from noon to 1 Pacific time, where we give real estate agents tactical, tangible interviews and rock stars from which they can just take things and use them immediately, right? These are highly actionable webinars. That's what these are designed for, that you can take them and just start using them right away. So I have been wanting to have Laura Gillott and her team on for a while. I've interviewed Laura before. Laura, we've done this before in a smaller group session, but I'm gonna introduce you, Laura. But like, feel free to jump in if I'm not sort of emphasizing something you think I should emphasize or whatever, because I know that you've built a really powerful business. But what I think is cool about Laura is she has built this massively huge business in a small town, right? Lebanon, Oregon has a population, when I checked it, it was 17 to 18,000 people. Is that still accurate?
Yeah, that's about right.
About right. And you sold 552 homes last year.
Actually, it's 551, but we're not going to go over
okay.
the one.
Okay,
the
sorry.
Person.
So sorry, my fact checking was off.
Yeah, and that it wasn't all in Lebanon, but probably about 300 of those sales were from Lebanon, Oregon. And there's about 600 sales a year.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And there's how many sales a year?
Well, there's 600, but that's 2 sides. So 600 is actually 1,200, 600 homes sell. And so, we have roughly between 20, 22%, up to 25% market share. And, you think about that, wow, that's great. But then it also kind of kicks me in the gut, because that means, like 75% of people are not using us. Why? We want everyone to use us, or at least 50%.
I love about you that you just said that. The fact that you just said that makes you amazing. So I think what's cool about you, Laura, is you started off as a realtor in in the early 90s, right? And in your hometown of Lebanon, and you grew it, and I like your reason for growing a team. Your reason for growing a team, and I'm going to read this, so forgive me for reading, but I think I like your words. The reason that you built your team was so that you could serve the Lynn Benton community with agents that share your standards and your care. I love that. I think that is so important to emphasize. You were Realtor of the Year in 2002. You were Woman of the Year in 2012. And you're currently, you don't just run and own the team, you're the team's listing specialist, along with, and we're going to talk to your lovely ladies in a minute, but Mackenzie is also a listing specialist on the team that we'll talk to today. We're going to also have Mindy Van Tilk, your Director of Marketing and Technology, and Katie Ellis, your buyer's agent, on today. And we're going to just, have you walk us through what it looks like to have a relational business, why that's important in 2021, why that's important in our new post-COVID reality, and and just learn everything we can learn.
That sounds good. Yeah. So I wanted to just clarify a little bit that I'm not so much a listing specialist on the team. I call myself, I'm the lead listing specialist. So I run the listing team. And so our team is very heavily listing driven, because we know without having a large inventory on the shelves, we're not going to have any shoppers. And it's important for us to have shoppers to, for our buyers to have inventory. And that was just funny, because I just did a stat just to see, because I thought, well, I wonder how far behind we are from last year, because we have no inventory. I mean, it just feels like there's nothing available. And when I did it last year at this time, we had taken 67 listings at this time. And then this year, and I did the stats, we had taken like 82. So even though we took more listings than we did the previous year during the same time frame, it just feels like we don't have anything, because they're selling so fast that we don't have the inventory to show our buyers, because they're gone as soon as they hit the market. So we're trying to pivot around that a little bit, as we're moving forward. Like, how do we find inventory enough to supply for all the demand that we have with our buyers that are coming? And I know everyone's feeling that across the country. That's just not for us here too.
Well, they are feeling it around the country. And what's interesting about that is, because I actually have written down a quote you said earlier today on a Facebook group you and I are both on, you said, we don't have an inventory problem. They're just selling too fast. And you just said it. And I think first of all, I think that's the real story is that we have an insatiable buyer demand story, right? But what I'm guilty of and what the wording out of most people's mouths are right now is we have an inventory problem. And I'm actually guilty of that, right? And you corrected me just because you're right. In some cases we do. In a lot of cases, especially for our successful agents and teams, we actually just have an insatiable buyer demand problem. Because you just said you've brought on more listings so far than year over year last year.
Yeah. So that was a little bit eye-opening because it feels like, because if you look at our active inventory, there's hardly nothing out there. So there's nothing on the shelves to market, because poor Mindy, she gets all this marketing done in like one day. She's like, okay, I just took all that time to market the property. It's gone. Like we don't get to use that. So she could talk a little bit more about that part of it. But yeah, there's just a different way to look at things and how we can pivot to do maybe in different markets is different, but we do have pre-listings in our market, and how we can get a little bit more out of those pre-listings, making certain we get a better front photo, make certain that we are able to tell the public that this listing is going to come soon, so we can, help those buyers find those properties and win, on those offers.
Well, we are definitely going to spend some time with Mindy today, so get ready, Mindy. In the meanwhile, before we get too in the weeds, what could you share with everybody? What does it take to sell 551 homes? Meaning, what does your team look like? Can you kind of walk us through your team structure? So I think it will help everyone get a visual.
Yeah. So we have like 15, I would say, seasoned agents on the team. People that have been doing it more than a year. People on the team more than a year, and then we have probably about 5 agents that kind of flex in and out, new agents coming in, new agents to the team, just getting their footing underneath them. And then we have about 20 admin. So we have like 4 transaction coordinators. We have 4 gals that work on the listing team, processing the listings. We've got 2 front desk people, 2 DFIs. We got Mindy's in marketing. She's got an assistant. I have an assistant. We have Lori Hill. She's our director of operations, and I have my husband. I'm probably missing a few people here, but that's about our team. So we run about 50-50 kind of admin support to the agents. And that is so important for us just because, we are a small town, so we can't drop the ball. We can't have a mad client. We've got to make certain we take care of everybody, that they're satisfied, because if word of mouth gets out that, we dropped the ball, or there's a mistake we made, or we treated someone badly, it's going to come back and bite us. So it's so important for us just that everyone gets taken care of, well. And we have agents that are moving at a fast pace. They'll go the extra mile for the client, but they don't have time to do all the detail work that's behind the scenes that's needed to do a good job.
Yeah. That's a great background. What are your primary sources of business? I think I know the answer, but
yeah. So of course our database is our primary source of business, and then referrals. And then, we do, because we take a lot of listings, we put those listing links out there, and then we get incoming calls on those listings. So that creates our buyer activity. And then we all work our sphere. We do a lot of events. I don't know last year's numbers, but the year before, we only had like 5% of our business was outbound lead generation, and all the rest was like some type of inbound coming in.
And that's primarily like you just said, sphere driven, or what we would call leads from listings, or referrals from your sphere.
Yeah,
and sphere driven.
And that's it's so hard to track when you're relational, because maybe they came in from Google link or a Zillow lead or something to that nature. They come into the system, but they don't actually do business with us because of that. They get invited to do a photo night with us. They come to a gathering. They call in on a reverse bold, and we touch them a few more times, and then they decide to do business with us. So do we count the first contact is how they did business with us, or do we count the 3 other contacts we've had since then? So just really trying to look through, when we were going through last year's number, just going, yes, they may have came in 2 years ago on this, but I don't think that's how we really got the business. We got the business because we had to nurture them through these other programs that we have.
Yeah. So for all the people watching that are, a little earlier on and they haven't hit their 551 number yet, like all of us. No, I'm kidding. There are some people I'm sure watching that have. Can you kind of walk us through, Laura, in the early days, you were out there as a realtor, because I was a realtor that long ago. You and I are so young, it's shocking. However, I was a realtor back then. Teams didn't exist. When did you actually start your team?
So I started business in 1992, and before 1993, I had an assistant. So I realized right away I can say I can sell, but I can't spell. Well, that's really true. The team will verify that. Like, I am so dyslexic, I'm off the charts, and it's tough for me to do paperwork. So I just knew right away that I need someone to come alongside me. For me, leverage was not a problem. Some people have a hard time letting go or don't like leverage, but that wasn't me. I'm like, someone please, clean my house, wash my car, do my paperwork for me. And so I started that right away, like within the first year. I didn't even know that was odd, because I was young. I was like 22 and thinking, well, just if I have someone to assist me, then they could do my flyers and proof everything. And, I love doing flyers. So, I love the creation part of it, but I couldn't do the detail work.
So when did you start growing, though,
Yes.
the team like we see now?
Yeah. So in 2011, I came over to Keller Williams, and actually Katie Ellis's mom was with me, and we had two other folks. We had a buyer's agent, we had a transaction coordinator and listing coordinator, and I was the listing agent. And so it was four of us that came over to KW in 2011, and we basically had to destruct the team and put it back together because I didn't have it set up correctly. So I didn't know the Millionaire Real Estate book. I didn't have a model. It was just the four of us selling real estate, and we did a great job on it, and we were the top in the town and all that other great stuff. But I couldn't grow the team under that structure because I was giving everyone a piece of the pie. And so when we came over to KW, it was like, okay, let's destruct this and put it back together and do it during the MREA model. And from there, we slowly built up like to 10 people. And 10 people, we were doing, I don't know, like 300 transactions, but the wheels were falling off the bus. I mean, we were hitting our heads against the wall. We knew we wanted to serve more people. We just couldn't figure out how. We tried to lead generate, but we were so busy, like, why search the haystack for the needle when we had all these needles just sitting out? Like, we just didn't have enough time. And Gene Rivers said to us, you're not gonna be able to do more unless you have some more people. Like you don't have a lead job, you have a people problem. You need to get some more people. So from there, then Lori Hill joined our team and helped us build to where we are today. So and surrounded ourselves with great talent.
Yeah, when you say MREA, obviously you mean the Millionaire Real Estate Agent,
yes.
Which, for those of you who don't know, is a book written by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, and it kind of is like a blueprint of one way to grow a real estate team that me and a lot of the people I interview utilize. So I'm curious, you made a comment that I'd like to circle back on, and you said at first you were giving away a piece of the pie. What did you mean by that?
Well, so everyone was getting 15%. So at that point in time, the TC was getting 15% of everything. The listing coordinator was getting 15% of everything. The buyer's agent was getting 15% of everything.
That's 45% right there.
Yeah. And so then I had the balance. So I couldn't add any more team members because I was still carrying the load of of running the team. And if I added anybody more, I'd be like going in the red. So I knew that couldn't sustain itself. And I'd gone to a couple family reunions. I was a little slow on joining KW, but I listened to how they talked about building the team. I'm like, okay, it's not going to work for us the way we are now, but we can deconstruct and put back together. And we did lose a couple team members when we did that because they were fear of loss. But one of those team members came back, and she ended up making probably double that she did when we had the other team structure, just because there was so much more business to be had. That when she was paid the other direction, she was able to net more money.
Yeah, that's the real trick, isn't it? Yeah. If the team can bring in more business, then the splits don't matter as much because there's a predictability and a sustainability of your business.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I would like to move on to Mindy. Laura, I'm hoping that you kind of jump in throughout this and, kind of add your thoughts to it, because I think your perspective is obviously, as a visionary of the team, I think we're all going to be interested in where you come in, and where your team members come in. I think that's fascinating. So please jump in.
Thank you.
And with that said, Mindy, I want to jump in hot. Like, I want to jump in and start talking about all these amazing marketing programs that you guys have done. Should I start with the video or should I start with the pictures? What do you think?
I say roll the video.
You say that sounds easy until
roll the footage.
Did I just lose it? Hold on. Hold. Oh, this is like, okay, here we go. No, I have it. I have it. Okay, I'm going to share this right now. Give me a moment. Give me 2 seconds here. 2 seconds. This is like fun technical stuff, right? All right, start screen. No, wait. Share screen. I know this is so fun and super professional what I'm doing. Okay. We are going to do this. Let me just make sure, by the way, that my screen. Well, I hope you guys can hear the music. Let me know. Can you hear it? Okay. Okay, I love that.
That got me so excited. Oh,
right?
I love that. Number one, it was amazing. Number two, you got them to dress up and like the whole deal. And you had a drone there doing, I love everything about that. I love literally everything I just saw. Mindy, so what was that supposed to be? So if COVID hadn't happened, what would that have been?
So I'm actually probably one of the newer people on the team. I've been here for 1.5 years. For years, Laura's been hosting this event called Pork and Tunes, which started off, I heard the story of it, but I wasn't there. It started off as this poker and pig night, right? Like, and it grew every year.
Why would we have a poker and pig night?
Yes. Yes. And the story of how it grew into this huge, they have a concert, they have a band that comes and plays. Some people come and they actually park and stay the night, and it's this big, huge party. And of course, when COVID happened, it was scheduled for July, and that we knew we were really holding on to it because everybody was thinking, okay, maybe this is going to be over in a couple months, right? And then there was a point where we knew we had to cancel. And, as with everything kind of that happened in 2020, it was all about pivoting, right? It was all about what are we going to do? What are we going to do different? What are we going to do instead? There was never, I've shared this, and Mackenzie and I were chatting about it this morning, but there's never a time where our foot was off the gas. In fact, I would say in 2020, we were faster and busier than we ever were before. And so this opportunity came up. It was, I have to give props. Lori Hill's not on the call, but Lori has incredible connections with people in our community. And she had a connection with the Boys and Girls Club, and they decided to bring back a drive-in for the summer of 2020 because that was a COVID-friendly thing that they could provide and maintain all of the social distancing rules. And they had one evening, the very last evening of the drive-in event was reserved for a private rental. And because of our connection and our relationship, we raised our hand first and we grabbed it. And so we had a special, and this was a client only event. I just want to make sure we have events that are open to the public and are for the purposes of just serving the community or meeting new people. This was a very intentional client event only event. And so we invited our clients. We actually, and we had people that rallied around. I would say that, I often get the question about what makes Laura's team different. There are a lot of teams and agents I know that are kind of constantly watching and trying to kind of duplicate some of the things that she does. And everyone who knows Laura knows that she's an incredible person and leader. And I would say that she has done a great job of rallying people that all serve. And that event was literally everybody had hands on deck. Everybody was involved. The husbands were involved. The agents were involved. The admin was involved, and when you're all rallying together like that, dressing up and looking ridiculous for an evening is not a big deal. Like it's different when you're the only one dressing up, right? But when everyone's dressing up, it's like, okay, well, this is what we do. And so,
so Mindy, to be clear, was this a Boys and Girls Club event that I'm just trying to understand, because it was a database event, but it was also a Boys and Girls Club event?
So let me clarify. So they reserved, they set up the drive-in, they created the whole setup for the drive-in for the summer of last year. And they held drive-in events every weekend. And so they were running the drive-in without us. It was functioning without us. We just got to reserve that final night. Okay. And so they still ran it. They had a guy come and help us with all the parking and whatnot, because that was one of the elements that we needed help with. But the screen was there. All the technology was taken care of. We essentially rented out the space from them.
Yeah. And I think the thing to take away on that, because Ben Kinney has always said this, which is, add yourself on to events where they're already providing the infrastructure, right? Where you can be a title sponsor, or where you can rent it out. Like you can rent a theater out right now for $150, you know? And so, I mean, that is such a smart tactic. Anyone at any level, even an individual agent, can do it. Take on someone else's infrastructure. Don't try to like recreate it on your own. I think that is so smart, Mindy. So when you and I were talking last week and kind of preparing for this, one of the things you said to me that I just thought was so fascinating is you said, look, I started last fall, fall of 2019, and you're here 6 months and COVID happened. And you said that, you went from like this highly relational and event-based team to scrapping 80 to 90% of your playbook.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious, what other events did you do, that you'll probably continue doing that, where you did that, where you just recreated your playbook?
Right. So yeah, I would say it's probably closer to 90%. Again, that's how Laura's built her business. It's relationship-based, event-based. And so some of the things, a lot of things we had to just cancel. Some of the things we were able to adjust. We have Pi Days twice a year. We were able to pivot and create a drive-through event. And we tried to make it as spectacular as possible. We had to eliminate our kind of infamous chili cook-off that we normally have in November, and things like that were kind of sad. But we worked really hard to hold on to the things that we could hold on to. So the Pi events, one in November and one in July for 4th of July, those stayed on the calendar with changes. Some of the other things that we had to do was just kind of dig down and figure out what we were going to do instead of hosting those events we normally host. Our classes went virtual. I think a lot of people dealt with that, right? We had in-house classes that went virtual. The other things that we started to add, and it kind of, it's interesting to look back at the story of how things happened, but when we were kind of digging deep, part of what Laura's mission is, it involves the community. It involves being community-centered and serving in the community and coming alongside and helping as we can. And one of the things that we heard over and over and over again from people that were kind of coming to terms with what the shutdown was meaning, was how it was affecting their families, were the graduates that had just gotten told their graduation was either not going to happen or it was going to happen kind of strangely, right? Like with adjustments, and their senior trips were going to be canceled. And so they were looking at the last several of the months of their senior year and dealing with all those pieces that were gone. And so one thing kind of fell into place, one thing led to another, and we ended up sponsoring graduation signs. And so we did this in Lebanon, and then we also did this in the Corvallis area. We partnered with a graphics place that we do a lot of work with. They created these signs, and we offered them to people in the community. And so we marketed it. We put out these little graphics you see, we put these out on social media. We asked them to contact us if they wanted a sign. And so as word got out, people really just started to rally around, and our some local people from the Lebanon High School contacted us, and we ended up having these little mini parades. So we had caravans similar to what you've seen people do for birthday parties. We had caravans of 4 or 5 or 6 cars that we decorated and put chalk paint all over. And we drove around town and installed these signs into these graduate homes and honked our horns and blared music and all that good stuff. And so it started off, like I said, it started off kind of just small and kind of escalated rather quickly. And then the other things that you saw was just something that we did to piggyback on top of that. Social media has really been, it's been big this year. People have been home, they're on TV, they're on the internet more than ever, right? We knew that. And so we've been trying to find ways to connect with people through social media. And sometimes it can be really hard to be relational through social media, right? And so again, it was an active service. We provided those little graphics that you saw with little headshots of the students. We offered those. We just said, hey, if you have a graduate, send us their photo in the school. We'll create it. We popped in the logos of the school. We changed it according to the school that they were attending and graduating from. And I think I shared with you that it's what started off as being something for like 3 or 4 or 5 schools. I think I ended up having like 20 schools that we ended up creating those for. And of course, those are not branded. Again, this was just intentionally done as just something for the families of graduates. We ended up making them for high school, junior high, college. Like there were no really limits to this one. And then they shared it on social media. And a lot of times, people would share it and say, shout out to the Gillott Home Team for creating this fun graphic. Congratulations to my graduate. But it was just really fun to see all of them contact us and all of these things getting made. So
Mindy, walk us through, speaking of social media, you guys did some really cool things with pictures too that I saw. I actually saw them, I think I saw Laura post them or something on my feed. What were you guys doing with pictures?
Well, and that's again something that started prior to COVID. So we did a photo shoot. We've done Santa photos for several years. We did that pumpkin photo for the first time in the fall of 2019. And we have this teal truck, this teal Chevy that's branded and really cool looking. And we filled it with pumpkins and we invited people to come and take photos. And so we ended up, what started off as like a day event turned into a 3-day event. And we served, I think we took it, on average, we take about 50 different family photos. Sometimes it's just one child. Sometimes it's a whole photo. We had a photo with one grandma who brought 10 of her grandchildren. This is the Santa photo shoot that we did. And, with these, we just had to pivot. So we couldn't have kids sitting on Santa's lap for COVID. I drew a line. I'm like, okay, I'm pulling my marketing director card. And I said, I drew a line to having Santa have a plastic shield over his face or something like that.
Thank you for that line.
Right. I'm like, but so we had this scene where the kids were actually sitting on this bench and Santa would kind of come behind them. And so we have pictures of Santa, putting his finger over his mouth, like he's being sneaky. And so we had that distance and a lot of photos were taken without Santa. We had just these types of photos anyway. So this is just another scenario where we just pivoted. We just changed what we did and just adjusted it slightly. And we were still able to, if you looked at the behind the scenes photos, we're all masked, we're all 6 feet, right? We're all social distancing and whatnot, but we were able to pull off those photo shoots with just some small adjustments.
So Laura, I have a feeling I know what is going through some people's heads right now, right? And especially some of our newer emerging teams, and that is, how expensive is it to do all of this?
We besides the drive-in was a little bit more expensive just because it was a win-win. So we helped sponsor the event because they then charged for the other times they charged entry fees to get in for theirs. So I think that was like a $5,000 sponsorship to sponsor that. So it was a little bit more expensive, but we weren't doing pork and tunes. So it was a good, there wasn't a lot of options for us to do anything. And it was a great event. But photographer, if you think about, like, we have an in-house photographer, and luckily Mindy's a photographer. So that doesn't take a lot of money to do. And once we get things set up, we just keep the setup stuff for the following year. And Mindy's a thrift shopper. She gets stuff at the Goodwill and Teen Challenge. So she buys things really cheap. And we're able to do those events. We're not like the people that said, oh, I spent $60,000 taking everyone to the zoo. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but our budgets are pretty tight, and we just do more.
Are you comfortable sharing? Because I think this is an important message. I interview many people, and I have done it myself. We spend a lot of money on leads on like Zillow or all the other companies, right? What I'm hearing and what's going through my head, and so you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that instead of spending that money on all of those online lead sources or whatnot, you're deciding to put that money into your database, and you're deciding to put that money into your relationships with your database reach outs and your events. And my hunch is you're highly profitable, and that these events and everything we're seeing is within a reasonable budget outlined in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, Mindy would be the person more with the budget. She's taken that over. And, for years, we're not people that buy the Zillow leads. I think we're a premier partner alongside of our listings, although I don't know if they even still have that. So I think we spend like $500 a month or something to that nature on that. But other than that, I'd much rather spend my money back onto the clients, for us to do that and to retain our clients than throw money, at a full page ad or paid per click. But you can add a little bit more, Mindy, on that. How are we with our budget?
So throughout the whole year of 2020, and even before that, our lead gen budget is actually under the MRE model consistently. And so, so we
about 11%. I'm trying to remember. Is that
9? Depending on who you talk to, and what update you're looking, which version you're looking at. 9 is what we have plugged in, and probably I've heard 11 tossed out before, and I'm just inclined to leave it at 9. If we're under 9, just keep it there, right?
So you're under 9. Everything we're seeing, everything we're hearing about, 551 homes. I think what I want everybody to hear is we're under 9%, on all of this. You guys are being really smart, I think, and really, really strategic in your choices. So I'd like to move on to Mackenzie. Because Mackenzie, your fearless leader said it so wisely. We actually don't have an inventory problem. We are selling them too fast. With that said, there are many people around the country watching us that are having inventory problems, right? And one of the things that I'm fascinated with that you and I talked about that I would love you to address is how does having a team that's a relationship-based team, how does that help you when you're in someone's dining room trying to get their listing?
Yeah. So a lot of times we've built trust with these people before we even go to take their real estate needs. I mean, we have a lot of people that go to those photo things that we've never done business with. We have people that show up to Pork and Tooth we've never done business with. I've met people, a year before I ever sit in their living room and talk real estate. So I think that does help us. We've built that trust before we even get in the door. We're inviting a lot of people. Mindy's really good about this. Like, invite everyone. You know what I mean? We have some events that are client events, but invite everyone to those photos. We're not exclusive. We want to invite the whole community.
Do you still compete? Do you compete to get listings?
It's getting more and more competitive. Yeah.
So what do those scripts sound like when there's a couple agents, right? And you guys have a big name in the marketplace, right? What would you say to a seller if you're competing?
Well, we have some good statistics and stuff that we're able to bring. We bring our value. So we have a value proposition. I don't know if we have that. Mindy was tuning that up, actually. because that's a huge thing. We were actually talking about that today. When you lose the listings to someone that maybe only took 2 listings all year, do you know what I mean? How do I get in front of them and how do I provide that value? How do I show them I'm worth the 6%, right? I'm worth it. My team is worth it. I have these people behind me that are wonderful. Laura's been in the business as long as I've been alive. So I may not know the answer, but I have someone that knows the answer.
I feel you on that one.
But I mean, that's the truth. I have someone that I can absolutely call anytime. She never sleeps, that can help me in anything we need. So sometimes, they know Laura's name and they know this business. And when I go out there, you know what I mean? And it's not Laura. We still work together. We're still a team. I have people on this team who do things way better than I can ever do them. Our listing success team is wonderful. They know how to keep us compliant. They know how to keep things rolling and moving, and they do that at a way better level than I ever would.
Laura, do you think you're getting more at bats as a team in your market area just because of all of this that you do, because of how you're marketing to your database and doing all these events?
Yeah, we're blessed that people call us and say, "Hey, I'd like a market analysis."
That's what I was getting at.
I know, and I didn't think that was. I thought everyone got that. Like, I just thought that was normal. Like how many, what do you do? But then I listened to everyone. They're like, we hit the phones from 8 to 11, and we get the for sale by owners and the expireds, and we just we really prospect hard. And I'm thinking, oh boy, like our team isn't that. We need to be more of that, but we're not that. But it's great that we can have relationships and that they can call us when they need something, and that the attorneys in towns can say, hey, someone just passed away. Could you do, we need a CMA for an estate. And then that turns into future business down the road. We're just always filling our pipeline, for the future. And the agents like on our team, their goal is to set 2 new appointments a week, but they can go into the database and find those folks. They can go into their share. They don't have to cold call or hammer things or do door knocking. I mean, yes, that's a great source of business, but I know I hate rejection. So this is the reason why we went into relational real estate, because it's a lot harder for them to reject you if they're your friend.
Yeah. How many listing appointment or CMA appointment requests would you say you get on week for average as a team?
Well, you can go to Katie and I'll look that up.
Okay, I'll go to Katie. I'll move to Katie next. And then while Laura's looking up her numbers, I appreciate that. I wouldn't probably have that one on the top of my head either. So Katie, you are the buyer specialist, right? One of the buyer specialists. Yeah. And so to be clear, you guys, you don't do listings. Mackenzie, you don't do buyers. I mean, just to be clear, you guys are a specialist. No, yeah. Okay. So Mackenzie, everybody is feeling this. All eyes are on you right now, because everybody in every market in the United States is going through multiple offers, right? And it's painful working with buyers right now. So tell us how having a database relationship team is helping you win offers right now.
Me or Mackenzie? Sorry.
Well, you, because you're the buyer's agent, right?
You said
yeah.
Mackenzie, so I was like, wait, just make it.
Did I? Well, it's because, I'm old and words.
No,
I get names mixed up. We're getting to that point in my life.
I get you. No, it's been a difficult year. I would say, and I used to pride myself so much. This year so far and last year have been humbling, because I used to say I was the multiple offer queen, and oh boy, I've been so humbled this year. But I think having a buyer who, me and Mackenzie were talking about this the other day, that we are relational, and I feel like a lot of my buyers, even if I don't know directly, they're the cousin of somebody that I sold to that had raving reviews about me last year or whatever, where they're a little more trusting and ready to go with the advice that I provide to them. So I would say that helps in regards to having that relational business, is that there's a little bit more of that, okay, whatever Katie says, let's go ahead and get this done kind of attitude.
Can I just stop you right there, Katie?
Yeah.
Because I think that a lot of new agents, if you're a new agent and you're watching this, this is really important, because what is challenging in this market is having the confidence and the credibility to ask a client to waive almost everything on an asset, sometimes worth, $500,000, right? When you yourself don't feel that. So this is a really important point, Katie. And I think it's really cool to talk about in the context of a highly database driven team. So how do you manage expectations up front with your buyers right now? What does that look like?
I feel like there's a sweet spot, and I don't know if it's a mirror and matching type of a situation, but there's, some have kitten mittens and some are just say, give it to me right now. And, and so I personally feel that out first. And if I'm dealing with a bachelor who's just like, listen, what do I got to do? I bring out that Katie. And then if there's somebody who's a first time buyer, then have the same conversation, maybe just a little bit different structure. So it's difficult, and it physically pains me. Not necessarily advising, but just telling somebody what needs to happen to be able to get it done. It's hard right now, because obviously my job is to get them the best deal possible and the best time frame and have the best service provided. But it's been a little hard. It's kind of, let's throw an offer out and see what sticks.
So Katie, are you talking buyers out of being active buyers right now? I mean, do you find that
No.
in order to counsel them, to be competitive in this market, you're simultaneously talking them out of it?
No. And like I said, I feel like there's a sweet spot and that confidence that comes with being in the business for a while, and just having, with the amount of deals we do, I feel like we get the bad and we get the good. So we've been through the bad. I know not to go down that route anymore. That's why I know what to do right now. And I really don't feel, what I tell my buyers right now is that it is an amazing time to buy. Historically, an amazing time to buy. One of the most frustrating times to buy that you'll ever have in your life. So if you can get past the frustration, and then it'll be worth it. You'll be in your home next year and be like, oh, I'm so glad we did this. So that's kind of the conversation I have when people say, well, I'll just wait. No.
Yeah. Well, so let's stay on that a minute. I think this is another big topic. And my question, I guess, is, especially for all of us working with buyers right now, my question is there a place though to say, you're not really that serious, you're not highly motivated? Do you choose to work with buyers that aren't as motivated right now, that are not willing to do what it takes? I mean, this is a real issue right now.
Right. It is. And I do, either I'm very lucky or I have the gift of gab. I'm not sure which one, but it hasn't been that huge of an issue for me right now. But if people do say, yeah, I'm going, let's offer 350 when they're asking 360. No, we have that conversation. I will absolutely write that up for you. But, once we lose a couple, maybe that's the lesson they need. And I will only give a couple because I'm busy, and, there's that. And I also want them to not get frustrated and not think that this is a great time to buy.
So what does it look like? What would you say to a buyer where you've lost a couple, offers because they haven't been aggressive enough? How would you coach them into being as aggressive as they need to be?
We restructure. I want to sit with them face to face at that point, if not FaceTime, Zoom call, something, not over the phone or texting. I want them to be able to see, just, it is what it is. We got to do what we got to do. And if this isn't the time to do so, then maybe we start looking in lower price ranges, something where you can afford to go a little bit above and beyond. But yeah, I would just say restructure at that point and just have a sit down with them to where you're actually having a little bit more of a relational thing, where in any time they get frustrated, this is a frustrating market for anybody right now. And so when anybody gets frustrated, Laura has said that all the time. FaceTime them, call them, get something face to face. So it's really harder to be frustrated with that person or just in general with the market.
Oh, thank you. Very, very good, Katie. I think a lot of people just got a lot of benefit out of what you just said. Thank you.
Oh, good.
That with us. So Laura, what did you find?
So since the beginning of the year, our Lebanon hub, we kind of define them a little differently, has gotten 97 CMA requests.
In what period of time?
It's the beginning of the year, January 1st.
So 97, so it's about a request a day, a little more than a request a day.
Yeah.
And is that probably going to last throughout the year? I mean, you'll get somewhere between 300 and, right around 350.
Yeah, as I remember right from last year, I think it was real close to there. And that's the blessing of having them reach out to call us and ask for a market analysis. Now, they're all not ready to list right now, of course. They're or listening calls, but not like today. And sometimes they call us and they call a couple other agents too. So it may not just be us, but it at least gets us in the door.
Oh, this is all about getting the at bats. Those are incredible numbers. So here's what I'd love to do next. I'd love to have Laura, I'd love to have you walk us through how this started, because there are a lot of agents in the beginning of their journey now. And then what I'd like to do is hop over to Mindy and have Mindy kind of walk through, Mindy, in just an aerial view of what your database and marketing plan looks like, for a full year. And again, you don't have to get in the weeds, just a kind of nicer, we send X amount of emails, we do this amount of events and whatnot. Are you guys good with that? Because I think it would be good, Laura, for you to go back in your career and kind of start with, what were the building blocks that you did to get here?
Yeah. So I was lucky right off the beginning. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Just make certain. Okay. At the very beginning, where I was a new agent, they said, well, you have to start a database. So get all your sphere and all your contacts into a database. So since 92, I have a database from 92, people that closed in 92, 93, 94, 95, and they're all tagged in our database. And so then once they closed, then, it was just great that, we could send them Christmas cards, during that time. So it was the beginning, just always keeping in contact with those folks, because during that time they had those statistics like 82% of the people won't remember who sold in the house in 5 to 7 years. So I never wanted them to forget me. And I knew I was in this for the long haul, not for the short game. And so I just always wanted them, like, it would hurt my feelings if I sold them a house and then they didn't call me back the second time. So I just always wanted to make certain I stayed in front of them. And I was, raised on Brian Buffini. So it was, I worked by referral. That's how I started. He was really big in the 90s. Still great.
That's how I started too. And then, yeah.
Yep. And, the Star Power and all that other great stuff, Howard Britton. And so, pop buys, items of value, client parties, those types of things is just that's how I learned the business. So I didn't really know it any other way. We didn't have, I was with a mom and pop company. So, we didn't have nothing wrong with Cold Bank or anything like that, but they had like a ninja program, or they had some kind of hog sweats or something. I can't remember what it was called.
Sweat hogs.
Yes. So I didn't have to go to sweat hogs. Like, I didn't learn that section of the business. If I probably broke my teeth on that and started that direction, that would probably be the way my business would have went. But we didn't have that. It was mom and pop company. I went to Brian Buffini, and that's just kind of how it started. So I was lucky in that sense, because I don't like rejection. I don't like asking people for business. I did want to lead with value first. And then I don't mind asking if I lead with value. So you definitely still have to ask. And probably for like the first 10 years, I didn't want to ask. Like, I didn't want to ask you if you had any friends or family. Now, and even though Brian Buffini would say ask, like, don't get off the phone with asking, I'm like, oh, I can't do that. That's too much. But now that I'm older and wiser, I realize that you do have to ask, and it's not that big of a deal. And when we do our listing challenges and other things, when it's top of mind, you ask all the time, you will believe the business that comes out that would probably never come out of the conversation just because you asked. So it's not a bad thing to ask them. You're a friend of theirs, you're providing them value. Just think about the worst realtor in your MLS. Think about those guys happening to call on her listing or his listing and do business with that person, how they're not going to be protected. We've had, because we do take lots of listings, we have tons of buyer agents on the other side. And sometimes they're like, oh, it's okay, it's got an underground oil tank, we'll just have the buyer take care of that after closing. And I'm like, no, like, you need to take care of that now. Like, that's not safe for your buyer to do that. And then I think about that, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to grow the team bigger, is because I want all those people to be protected. Buying real estate's your biggest asset. You could lose thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars if you do it wrong. And I want to make certain that everyone gets well protected with that. And so that was really important to me.
And so, Laura, so if you started with Buffini, that means you started mailing things to your database, snail mail. And then when did you transition to regular emails? I'm assuming that was kind of, you mailed first, and then you probably did the pop buys like we talked about.
Yes.
And events. And then I'm assuming, that eventually transitioned to emails, kind of regular emails.
Yeah. So we did our weekly updates too. It's been important for us that each week we did weekly updates to all of our listed clients and clients under contract. And we used to mail those things off every week, along with a copy of their ad that was in the tell and sell and that sort of thing. We used to mail them every week. And we probably stopped that right about the time when we came over to Keller Williams in 2011.
Okay.
So we mailed things out each week. We mailed out like 50 envelopes every week with their updates. And then we moved over to Keller Williams and we started doing more email updates. So it's a lot less mail.
Yeah. Okay. And so Mindy, kind of, walking over to you today, what's an aerial view of your guys's, annual marketing / database program?
So I think it comes down to, if I were to narrow it, I think it comes down to two things. One is being the real estate resource. So, we talk about the fact that for a lot of people, the book opens when they have real estate needs, and when they sign that contract and get the keys, the book closes, right? And so the challenge is, how do we keep that book open? How do we become a homeowner's resource, right? So all those conversations about continuing that relationship after the transaction, right? As Laura mentioned, we want them, when they want a vendor, we want them to come to us to recommend a vendor to them to use. If they have questions about their home, we want them coming to us. Anything home related, we want to make sure that they know that we will either give them the answer or we will find the answer for them. And so the other piece is proximity. And I think for me, they're two lanes that we're trying to tackle at the same time. I love this story about somebody walking into a store and being greeted by the person at the front of the store and then saying, "Oh yeah, I'm fine, I don't need help." And then they get back to the back of the store and they want to try on pants, and they don't walk up to the person at the front of the store to have them open a dressing room, right? Whoever's nearest to them and has keys to the dressing room has the ability to serve them. And we know that there are a lot of agents with keys to the dressing room. And so we want to make sure that we're in proximity. And I think that's those other pieces, those marketing pieces to me are those pieces that allow us to be in proximity to people so that when it comes time for them and they have a real estate question, they're like, "Oh, I just had my photos done over here at the job. I bet they have an answer to that." It's that proximity piece that we're working on as well. And so it is a two-lane road. And I think that it's interesting that email marketing to me has kind of flexed back and forth. I feel like we're going back to doing some of the things that we had kind of written off as not as valuable. I think even mailers and print marketing is becoming more valuable. We weren't printing much before. We now print brochures and have brochures at the front of our office, and people are taking those all the time now. And I think there was a time where we had stopped printing stuff. Everything was digital and everybody was really eager for it to be digital. And I think we're swinging to the other side of the pendulum, so to speak. But same thing with we stopped doing certain postcards for a while, and now we're back to mailing postcards out again. Email marketing has changed. So we're looking at doing more kind of bite-sized email marketing rather than what we've been doing, which is kind of newsletter marketing, right? And so it's all just about staying in touch, giving people what they want. I think the other piece that's really important, especially from an email marketing standpoint, is making sure that we're zeroing in and giving people what they say they want. Opting into receiving market stats, opting into receiving event notifications, that type of thing, rather than just giving everybody everything and hoping and crossing our fingers that they want it. Everybody wants it, right?
Okay, so just to kind of, the overview would be, I'm hearing email marketing, you're doing postcards and some snail mail. Email marketing is, you might have a stat email, you might have a concierge, use us as a real estate resource email rather than the old school maybe newsletter now. So it's just more frequent emails that are maybe more specific, and then mails, obviously events. How many events would you say you guys have a year?
So it fluctuates depending on the season. I try to have something that we're doing monthly that's keeping us in proximity with people. So again, whether it's a giveaway that we're doing or the photo shoot that we're doing, something that we're offering. What I would love is for every month for our agents to be able to say, "Here's something we have to offer you." And I love it when it's free and clear and there's no there's no requirements, right? Come and have your photos done, and we're going to send you, you know, a dozen or 2 dozen photos of your family, and there's no strings attached. I love that ability to be able to just offer things to people. And I think that allows for relationships to be created organically, and it's not because it's not a business relationship that we're initiating. And so email marketing. I think that the trick, if I were to share my insight on email marketing and websites, I think work the same way. And the change that has happened that I think is really important is that it's what I call a choose your own adventure. So instead of bombarding an email with a whole bunch of stuff or bombarding a website with a whole bunch of stuff, we're saying, here's something, if you want more, click here. Here's a little thing, if you want more, click here. And then they click there, and then they go here. And if they want more, they can click again, right? So it's putting the consumer in the driver's seat, so to speak. So that
do you use HubSpot, Infusionsoft for that? What do you use for that?
What was that?
Do you use HubSpot or Infusionsoft or anything for that?
No. We have Constant Contact that we use for our emails and everything. I'm a button freak, so buttons galore in our emails. And again, so instead of including the whole entire blog or the whole entire post, we're doing a snippet, and then if they want to read more, they can click. The same thing with our website. So the website's created in the same kind of format where they can go to a page and click more. What we want is we all know with digital, it's all about those little rabbit trails, right? You click on something, you go here, you click on something else, and we want them to do that with us, essentially. So
yeah, and as we close, I'm gonna share my screen and show your website as we close. Laura, I've just experienced, and we've all experienced, some incredible women today. I've had a couple people ask, how are you finding talent as your team grows?
That's a tough question. The nice thing about small town is that we know people from the time that they're little. Everyone that's here, besides Mindy was a little bit of stranger danger, but she was a referral from John. But Mackenzie, I knew her grandma, I knew her mom. Katie's the daughter of Sherry Ellis, and so we knew Katie growing up. So I think it's just important, at least for us, that we know who we have on our team are solid individuals that care about people, that do the right thing, that are, that have integrity. And that's the most important, because, if you get one bad apple on a team, it really can make things go sideways. And so, it's for us, it's hard for me to hire a complete stranger. I really want to know them, or be highly referred to someone who says, this is a really good person. They would be a really good batch on your team.
I just think it's so fitting to conclude this with you sharing that you get these, amazingly talented people we're seeing on your team the same way you get your business. And that is with your relationships and with your database. So, Laura Gillott, who is at the airport, by the way, everybody, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us while you're at the airport in Florida, right?
Yes, on my way home.
Yep. Mindy, thank you so much for sharing about all of the marketing. Katie Ellis and Mackenzie Greenlee, you guys are amazing. Keep doing what you do. Lebanon, Oregon, if anyone has any referrals or wants to reach you, what is the best way to reach you guys? Would it be your website?
Or just call us. I know Mindy's going to say website because she doesn't like putting phone numbers on things, but I'm going to say
no one remembers the phone number. What's the website?
It's teamgillott.com, and it's 2 L's and 2 T's in Gillott. So
there you go.
teamgillott.com. Just jump on there and send us a note. We'd love to help out. And Mindy's got a link that she helps put her marketing stuff on. So people that ask a lot, like, what's going on with the marketing? Mindy, do you want to give that, how to get to that?
Yeah, and we can also email that out, Mindy, as well. So
okay, perfect.
One. Hey, everybody, thank you for joining us. And next week, do not miss Ben Kinney. He's going to share everything, how his team is getting hundreds and hundreds of listings and what they're doing. So Mackenzie and Laura, you guys ought to hop on that and see what the Ben Kinney team's doing and what we're up to. We all need new listings, right? All right, thanks, everybody, and we will see you next week.